Okay.
So if you are ready, we are ready. We can start whenever you want.
Okay. I think we can start.
So I am counting down from 3, 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us in the dissemination event for the ETF EBRD joint study on inclusive skills for innovative enterprise development in the aftermath of COVID-19 in the agribusiness sector. I'm Erika D'Avoglio, a project officer working at the European Training Foundation, and today I will quickly go through some technical details. And first of all, let's look at the Zoom instruction. Next slide, please. We kindly ask you to mute yourself by clicking on the microphone icon if you're not speaking, but to keep your camera open so that we can see your faces. The meeting will be delivered in English mainly, and interpretation in French, Georgian, Russian, Serbian, and Turkish is available. To select your preferred language, please click on the little globe in the bar down below on the right-hand side of the screen and choose your language. If you prefer, you could also select mute original audio to improve the sound quality of interpretation. We kindly ask presenter to speak a little slower than usual to ensure a smooth interpretation service and to select the English channel when speaking, or French channel in this case, so that interpretation in the other languages will be smooth and clear. If you have questions, you can address it in the chat in your native language. We will try our best to reply to all questions, but in case we do not have time, we will reply to you after the meeting in writing. We also kindly ask you to rename yourself, if possible, by writing your name, surname, and organization. The acronym is just fine. All the documents presented during the meeting should have been received by you via email and are available on our website event page. Let's look briefly at the agenda for today. Next slide, please. Thank you. As you can see, we will have an introduction from ETF, European Training Foundation, and EBRD side. EBRD is European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. Then we will dive deeper into the study by presenting the research and findings. Space will be given to you for questions, and then we will have a short break before moving to the panel discussion with our guests from the countries involved in the study. I will take this opportunity to thank you all again for participating on behalf of Manuela Prina, Head of Skills Identification and Development Unit here at the European Training Foundation. Unfortunately, Manuela is not feeling well at the moment. She apologizes for not being able to present today. She sends her kindest regards to all of you and wishes you a very good meeting. Now I will immediately pass the floor to my colleague, Anastasia Fezzi, Lead Human Capital Development Expert here at ETF. Anastasia, please, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much, Erika, and I would like
Anastasia, we cannot hear you.
I apologize, but for some reason, Zoom throws me out. Anyway, I will do it very quickly. I would like to welcome you in this meeting, which is very important for us from the side of ETF, EBRD, but also of Ergon, but also for all of you who work in the development of the sector of agri-food. So what I would like to say is that we started this study last October, some months after the start of the COVID crisis. And the reason why I did it was because we saw that there are some companies being more resilient, functioning better during this period of COVID crisis, while others were not able to do so. And although this was depending on the sector, we also saw that in the same sector, some companies are more able to deal with the situation than others. So we try to understand what is happening. And the reason to opt for the sector of agri-food, it was because
Okay, we're having some technical problems with Anastasia. I hope Margherita is there to present. Margherita, the floor is yours.
Sure.
I'm back for the moment.
Okay, thank you.
Erika,
Thank you,
yes.
sorry.
So I'm sorry, I don't know what is happening. It has never happened to me, but maybe you know what I will do. I will change place. I don't know. I don't know if it is my connection or the system. But anyway, just to finish off, I mean, I don't have a lot of things to tell you. It is about the fact that the importance of this sector made us to focus more on this because it is important for the countries in terms of employment. There is a lot of potential.
Okay, I don't know if Anastasia can rejoin quickly. In any case, we will maybe can hear from her a little bit later. And now I will pass the floor to Margherita Calderone, Principal Economist at EBRD. Margherita, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm very pleased to be co-hosting with Anastasia and everyone at ETF this panel discussion today. As most of you know, our gender and economic inclusion approach focuses on working together with the private sector clients and national governments to open up economic opportunities to previously excluded social groups, including young people, women, and local workers in specific regions. As per our model, we also help bring the concerns that businesses have to the attention of relevant government authorities through our policy dialogue activities and multi-stakeholder platforms on market-relevant skills development strategies that often we manage together with our partners, such as ETF. Our activities became even more relevant in the aftermath of the pandemic, especially in the agribusiness sector. For example, we have been working since last year with 2 major food retailers in Poland and Turkey, and we assisted them with workforce planning and rapid recruitment measures in a gender-sensitive way to help them meet the increased customer demand in specific retail segments, such as online sales. So as Anastasia was saying, with ETF, we launched this research project at the end of last summer in order to provide further evidence to support all the employers and policymakers confronted with little information and uncertainty on the impact of COVID-19 on human capital in the agribusiness sector. As you will see from Alistair's presentation, the study draws on national experiences of 5 ETF and EBRD partner countries. And it aims to identify companies that engage in innovative and inclusive skills development practices and to derive lessons learned to incentivize such investments. And we have an example here of one of our EBRD clients from Turkey. We also wanted to assess how skills in the agribusiness sector need to adapt to changing circumstances to not only overcome the crisis, but also find a response that will result in a more inclusive and innovative strategic realignment. We also aimed to provide policy recommendations on how to develop inclusive policy responses that are informed by the needs of businesses and integrated in the country's priorities for economic recovery, development, and innovation. To fulfill these objectives, the study now offers a series of very interesting insights on inclusive skills for innovative enterprise development, which will be presented by our consultants. And we are delighted to discuss these results with you today. And we look forward to all your precious inputs and comments. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Margherita. I will now pass the floor back to Anastasia, since she was interrupted. Anastasia, the floor is yours.
Yes, I'm sorry, I changed the room of my house, that maybe the connection is better. You know, these things are happening these days with the internet interaction. Just to say, Margherita said everything about the study. The purpose today is exactly to present you the results of this very intensive work that has been done during these last months. And we would like to thank all of you who has participated in the discussions through focus group surveys, and also to thank very much Ergon that has been really doing this study very intensively during these months. So what I would like to do now, it is to pass the floor immediately to Alastair Usher, who is director and co-founder of Ergon, to give us the results of this study, what we have learned, and what, on the basis of what we can discuss later on. So Alastair, the floor is yours.
Many thanks, Anastasia, and good morning. To technical staff, can I share my screen, please? Thank you. So my name is Alastair Usher. I am a director and co-founder of Ergon Associates, which is a specialist consultancy focusing on employment and inclusion issues based in London. I myself am speaking to you this morning from Haarlem, just outside Amsterdam, demonstrating in some small measure the wonders of the new digital global economy. I would like to just momentarily return my slides to the beginning, introduce a little bit what we're going to do over the next hour and a half or so. We will try and give you digestible parts of this really large research project. So in 3 sections, first of all, looking at the key overall findings, cross-country findings, and then making some time for your questions and brief discussion. Then secondly, looking specifically at each of the 5 countries, so Georgia, Morocco, Serbia, Turkey, Uzbekistan. And then in the final section of this first part of the webinar, looking specifically at the policy pointers, the conclusions and the implications of the research for enterprises, for intermediaries, and for policymakers, governments. So as we begin, I would just like to also echo the thanks of Anastasia and Margherita to all of you, our valuable stakeholders, and particularly to the companies who participated in the case studies. I would also like to thank my colleagues in Ergon, and particularly the national experts who worked with us on this assignment, many of whom are joining today. So thank you to you all. I will endeavor to speak slowly, and interpreters, please let me know if I don't achieve that goal. And secondly, to make enough time for your input. This is not simply a one-way process. We're really interested in your feedback and your insights on this research. So to begin with then, let's start with the very big picture. Our current agri-food systems have delivered an astonishing increase in global food production since the 1950s, and consequently a tremendous decrease in global hunger. Simultaneously, however, they've also led to a number of negative social, economic, and environmental externalities. Agri-food systems worldwide are currently undergoing a rapid transformation driven by urbanization, globalization, diversification, concentration, and expansion of food markets and trade. we can see that the pandemic has reinforced and accelerated some of these trends. Evidently, there is huge potential for innovation in the agribusiness sector, underpinned by digitization-driven technologies in areas such as precision farming, sustainable packaging, blockchain-based food tracing. Equally, COVID-19 has brought into focus something of a trend towards deglobalization, increasing restrictions on labor migration, localization of food production, which risks reducing access to external markets, particularly for lower income countries. In terms of jobs effects, employment in primary agriculture historically declines as countries develop, though new jobs are created off the farm, particularly in agri-food industry and services. And this expansion in agri-food jobs partly compensates for the loss of on-farm work. But we also know that jobs in agri-food processing and trade can be susceptible to automation themselves. So to optimize the opportunities the agri-food system offers while brokering the transition to higher productivity, more sustainable agriculture, three broad areas demand attention. First, increasing productivity, boosting inclusive value chain development. Second, proactive measures particularly to benefit from agricultural digitization. And last, managing the global transition to fewer and better jobs in primary agriculture and more and better jobs in agribusiness, downstream agri-food, processing, trade, and retail. All of these require significant investments in inclusive skills development, including digital skills. Now, to our research assignment. Our research aims to provide an overview of challenges, opportunities, and current policy and private sector experiences concerning innovation and inclusive skills development for sustainable agribusiness in the light of COVID-19 and in 5 focus countries, as I've said, Georgia, Morocco, Serbia, Turkey, and Uzbekistan. Just a brief reminder of the scope of our work. We've been looking, I suppose, at a constellation of issues along the agribusiness value chain. So innovation, technology-based innovation, of course, but also innovation linked to processes, products, marketing, and organization. We've been looking at inclusion, that is opening up opportunities, as Margarita said, to a broader range of underserved groups with a particular focus on women, youth, and rural populations. Of course, we've been focusing on skills and taking a broad definition of skills, so including basic skills, soft skills, managerial skills, and technical skills. And of course, the contextual frame for our work is the advent and consequences of global pandemic, COVID-19. We've been looking particular at both policy and enterprise responses to the pandemic, which demonstrate resilience and adaptability. So specifically, our research examines the practices and experiences of a range of agribusiness companies in each country, right from very small startups and SMEs, small and medium-sized enterprises, through to international, multinational brands, including major retailers, supermarket chains. And although we have considered, of course, wider trends across global and national agri-food systems, our principal focus has been on downstream agri-food processing, trade, and retail. As I said, I'll return to some specific company examples in the next section. Now, agribusiness is a strategic sector for all 5 countries, making important contributions to GDP and providing a key source of employment for a substantial share of national populations. downstream agribusiness is also an important net contributor of jobs to the economy in all 5 countries. Agri-food processing, trade, and retail are becoming increasingly significant in the context of ongoing structural transformation towards more manufacturing and service-oriented economies. Innovation is central to the sustainable transformation of agri-food systems and of the capacity of the agribusiness sector to support higher quality jobs in agri-production and more and better jobs in downstream agribusiness. Technological innovation, mainly relating to improving efficiency, reducing costs, and raising productivity, has been increasing in all 5 countries. Changing consumer preferences and evolving market access requirements, especially for exports, has spurred innovation in product development, quality, production processes, marketing, and sales. The demands of export markets in particular, specifically in terms of standards on food safety, quality, production methods, and business practices, have been an important driver of innovation among firms seeking enhanced access to external markets. Long-term sustainability is also a crucial driver of innovation, particularly in countries such as Morocco, where the impact of climate change now calls for radical adaptation. And agri-food companies increasingly identify environmental and climate issues as a priority area for innovation and action. And of course, in many cases, the pandemic itself has forced innovation. Agribusiness actors have needed to respond to restrictions on movement of people, on supply and distribution, and that's stimulated adaptations in business systems and approaches. Many of these adaptations have either accelerated or benefited from digitization and increased connectivity with supply chain partners, public authorities, as well as internally across business units and among staff. Public health measures have also forced innovations in relation to traceability, packaging, and customer-facing business practices. Now, technology has yet to have a sector-wide breakthrough effect in the countries we've been studying, and investment cost still represents a significant barrier, particularly for smaller actors. Across the 5 countries, agri-food sectors are commonly divided between a few large, vertically integrated firms and a larger number of small and medium-sized enterprises, including micro enterprises, and including also a high proportion of subsistence producers. Now, this group typically employ the larger vertically integrated firms typically use modern technologies, business practices, and are increasingly integrated into international as well as domestic markets. However, most micro and small agri enterprises face significant financial and human capital constraints that limit their capacity to innovate and upgrade operational practices in ways that can enhance productivity and access to new markets. Now, internal capabilities are a key variable for agri-food innovation. Although the agribusiness firms we spoke to for this report focused on different skill shortages, technical skills gaps concerning digital technologies, or the need for enhanced management competencies, the overall picture is one of a significant, albeit varied, skills drag on innovation in agribusiness. Financing is also a significant constraint. Technological innovation remains limited by companies' reliance on internal financing and perceived constraints on buying in external expertise. where agribusiness firms compete principally on price, there is also a reduced commercial incentive to innovate. The access of agribusiness operators to what we could call the innovation ecosystem is also crucial. Few agri-food SMEs innovate in isolation. Innovation activities need to be integrated into a network of different actors and supported by a conducive institutional and policy framework. Now, agribusiness firms recognize that the agri-food sector will benefit from modernizing mid and downstream activities, including mechanization, automation, digitization, and upgrading human capital. And there are a number of emerging focus areas for innovation in food processing technologies, packaging, preservation, and supply chain management. And as I said, the COVID-19 crisis has also brought changes in consumer trends and behaviors that are likely to extend beyond the pandemic itself and that require innovative responses from agri-food companies. For example, an increased focus on sustainability and health incentivizes product and business process innovation. Agribusiness firms are also investing in digital innovations in response to a rapid expansion of demand for e-commerce and platform-based agri-food operations. The shift to e-commerce has been observed in differing degrees in food retail across project countries, but including countries where it was significantly previously underdeveloped. Specific fields of sustainability innovation relate to energy efficiency, water efficiency, reintegrating production waste into the production cycle, and addressing food waste. Finally, enhancing coordination and integration within agri-food chains, value chains, is a particularly important area of focus in the context of fragmented, sometimes highly fragmented agri-food systems. On to skills. Now, a skilled workforce is a driver of innovation and a prerequisite for the development and adoption of new technology. But labor shortages and the absence of necessary skills in the labor market are a central concern for many agribusiness firms. A range of companies reported challenges in recruiting workers with the skills and experience required for innovation and technology adoption, including skills related to the development and use of new technologies, digital sales and marketing, supply chain management, and skills adequate to the demands of new and emerging occupations, such as roles relating to supply chain traceability and inventory management. Companies also noted shortages of recruits with adequate managerial skills to support innovative business process, organizational, and human capital innovations. Lack of consistency, relevance, and quality of outputs from national TVET systems is another overarching concern relating to skills development across the project companies. Company concerns focus variously on teaching quality, qualification and certification frameworks, coordination with the private sector on skills anticipation, and dynamic alignment of the curriculum to demand, as well as overall capacity of education systems to meet demand, specifically in rural areas. Further, few smaller agribusiness enterprises have the capacity themselves to provide their own training and skills development programs, or to respond proactively to potential employment displacement effects, for example, through the adoption of automation technology. A particular concern of smaller enterprises relates to the high fixed costs associated with participation in collaborative work-based learning initiatives. Last, another challenge is that agri-food is commonly not perceived as an attractive career option for many youth, and these perceptions contribute to low enrollment rates in sector-relevant VET, technical, vocational, educational, and training programs. Now, employers can play an important role here by formalizing skills and qualification requirements into job requirements and recruitment processes. Indeed, several agribusiness firms, particularly larger firms, have established their own skills development initiatives, often along the lines of company training academies. These companies view internal training programs, including work-based learning, as better equipped to develop the precise skill sets required by the business. Additionally, increased focus on in-company training can contribute to improved retention of staff and workforce stability. There are important efforts on the part of private and public sector actors to enhance coordination around skills development for agribusiness. For example, several of the countries we looked at have introduced sectoral skills organizations that provide an institutional structure through which private sector companies can input into the development of national skills frameworks. There are also important initiatives to establish formal partnerships between agribusiness and higher education institutions to enhance cooperation on teaching and curricular development, to expand work-based learning opportunities, and to increase the visibility of agribusiness careers. An increasing number of agribusiness enterprises are making skills planning a priority component of their business strategy. Skills planning at enterprise level enables firms to better communicate their current and anticipated needs to cross-sector platforms and training providers, contributing to an improvement in quality and relevance of training programs. There is scope for employers to give greater weight to qualifications in recruitment, but also to raise the prestige and perceived relevance of sector-specific TVET qualifications. Furthermore, firms with frameworks for skills classification and development can make important progress in promoting equality of opportunity through implementing skills-based decisions in recruitment, reward, and promotion. The basis for non-discriminatory hiring and development of staff, after all, is to base employment decisions on individuals' capacity to do their job. Which takes us to inclusion. Agri-food employment is critical to inclusion outcomes, not least because agri-food sectors represent such a significant source of employment across project countries, and particularly amongst the poorest and most vulnerable parts of society, including women, youth, and rural communities. Inclusive growth of agri-food sectors can also help address wider social and economic marginalization. Now, for agribusiness companies, a key driver of inclusion and diversity is the need to meet labor and skills shortages. In practical terms, inclusive skills practices, which expand opportunities for underserved groups, offer great potential for both companies and society. First, by expanding the labor force and helping to tackle persistent skill shortages. And second, by fostering a more diverse workforce. Now, a strong commitment to equal opportunity also contributes to an agribusiness company's reputation and brand as an employer of choice, helping the company to secure the best talent. In some contexts, broader shifts in society have stimulated private sector efforts to support inclusion. For example, large young populations in several of the countries we looked at have led some agri-food companies to prioritize youth recruitment. Similarly, where the share of rural population is high, companies operating beyond urban centers offer significant employment opportunities for rural workers. Now, overall, companies report that women make up a smaller share of the workforce compared to men and are particularly underrepresented in technical roles. In part, this reflects overall women's lower participation in agribusiness-related fields of study, including technical education, which limits the number of highly skilled female candidates for recruitment. But social norms, which situate women as responsible for care and household tasks, can act to discourage women's entry into paid employment. They can divert women away from private sector employment or toward a restricted range of part-time or flexible roles, as well as limiting opportunities for professional development, including training or promotion into management roles. And where women are well represented in the workforce, men nevertheless predominate in more senior positions. So there is there a vertical occupational segregation as well as a horizontal segregation. Rural-urban gaps in access to education and employment are a further barrier to inclusion in agribusiness. Skills deficits tend to be greater in rural and remote regions where there is limited provision of and access to public education, making it more difficult to find qualified staff and so to ensure regional inclusion. The limited attractiveness of agribusiness employment is also a challenge to building a more diverse agribusiness sector workforce. In particular, a range of firms observe that young people tend to view the sector as offering potentially a less attractive career path than other sectors with a similar demand for skills. But agribusiness firms are taking real steps towards inclusion. Companies have sought to support inclusion in employment by identifying and fast-tracking high potential talent from a broad pool to promote equal opportunity and professional development. Women employees, for example, have benefited from additional support for career development, including through dedicated mentoring and coaching programs. Accessible and inclusive career trajectories based on skills and experience are in place, and agribusiness companies have taken steps to address the glass ceiling relating to women's access to more senior managerial positions. A lack of sufficient technical skills in the workforce has encouraged agribusiness firms to bolster their outreach activities and to establish partnerships with educational institutions to ensure that the enterprise benefits from as wide a pool of talented candidates as possible. Several companies in our research have sought to improve access to employment entry points through internships and apprenticeships. So finally for this section then, the impacts of COVID-19. It might be said that COVID-19 has been both a warning and a most severe warning and an opportunity. A warning of the vulnerabilities and the divides which have been so cruelly exposed, and an opportunity to force new ways of doing things, rapid innovation born out of necessity. Overall, the agribusiness sector has been relatively well insulated from the worst effects of the crisis, with food production continuing largely interrupted. We'll look at some specific country examples in the next section, and in many cases backed by significant government support to ensure continued food supply. However, some agribusiness subsectors have been significantly affected by quarantine measures, including enterprises which cater to tourism and hospitality, obviously. In other cases, stricter inspection and sanitary measures have dampened exports, and a number of firms experienced temporary logistical challenges in adapting to social distancing and other public health requirements. Given the unpredictable trajectory of COVID-19, and I emphasize that our research was undertaken at a period when we were in a different part of the pandemic, but the unpredictable trajectory means, the potential for recurring lockdowns and restrictions. Agribusiness firms have really needed to transition the workforce to new forms of operations. This has frequently been accompanied by workforce skills development in order to develop internal capacity and create a more flexible and agile workforce that's better positioned to respond to rapid change. Across the 5 countries, COVID-19 has prompted huge shifts in how people consume and purchase food, in turn prompting agribusiness and agri-food enterprises to rethink fundamental aspects of their operations. For retail companies, this has hastened the introduction or massive expansion of e-commerce. A number of firms have reported how digital technologies are rapidly transforming how the company works and are already reducing the costs of information, transaction, and supervision. Across the countries of study, firms report a scaling up of online training, including access to remote skills development tools and boosted use of digital solutions for distance learning. For those firms with integrated value chains, including cultivation operations whose seasonal labor requirements are typically met by migrant labor, COVID-19 related restrictions on internal and cross-border movement brought a range of challenges in ensuring labor supply. And I'm delighted that we have colleagues from Anadolu İtap, a major Turkish food producer, who have a really interesting best practice example of how to safeguard those labor inputs, those seasonal labor inputs, through responsible recruitment practices in the context of COVID-19. In some cases, the disruption of other segments of the economy presented opportunities for agri-production to position itself as an employer of choice. And as noted earlier, agribusiness firms also report exploring new product offerings, responding to consumer demand and renewed interest in health and nutrition and local food. So at that point, I would like to pass the floor back to you before we take up with the country-specific examples. Thank you.
Alistair, thank you very much for this overview, a quite detailed overview that demonstrates the developments in the sector or the potential developments in that sector, and that you explained so clearly to us about the triggers and challenges that the sector and the companies of the sector are facing to take advantage of technological change and new opportunities. Now, I would like to ask if any of you has a question for Alistair. If in the presentation that was done, there is something that you would like to have seen, something that we have not captured yet, or just a question for clarification of something that was said. I see my colleague Christine on the chat has put a question. I read it. According to you, excuse me, I missed this now. What can be done to support SMEs, or rather to convince SMEs for training on innovation. And we have also another question, Alistair. In addition to the proposed positive agri-skill initiatives, it would be valuable to strengthen internationalization component in agricultural vet by proposing apprenticeship places for vet students in EU partner countries. So there is it seems a German-Georgian partnership initiatives in agriculture, strengthening students' mobility. Yes, this issue of mobility is extremely important for apprentices to develop experience in other countries. So shall we take this to this one reflection, Alistair, which is about convincing SMEs
Yes,
to invest in
yes.
skills, and the other on the benefits of cooperation and student mobilities.
So I think the first question about how to engage with smaller firms is a crucial question, both in practical terms, but also for policymakers, for the reason I gave earlier, which is the productive composition of agri-food sectors in all of these countries. That is, there are a smaller number of large, vertically integrated, global, or at least internationally integrated firms, generally with more advanced practice, and then a numerical majority of much smaller firms. Now, for us, that means it's crucial that steps to promote inclusive skills effectively engage that numerical majority of SMEs. In terms of the approach, I think it is crucial and also credible to make a positive business case around productivity and efficiency gains, around workforce management, around particularly market access, meeting export market requirements and meeting changing consumer preferences, including domestic consumers, and also around the operational necessity in terms of having a more resilient business and a more adaptable business. And of course, small businesses are supremely agile. So that's building on the resilience and natural adaptability of a small business. But of course, there are some key concerns around resources. So many of the policy pointers that we will discuss are around including SMEs in discussions around skills development within sector skills organizations, including SMEs within aggregation efforts, clustering efforts, and including SMEs within what we could call the innovation ecosystem, that is having access to the skills and knowledge transfer, both coming from higher education, coming from research and development institutions. Now, what the precise platforms for that integration of SMEs is will depend on the national characteristics. We know that there are increasingly, representation of those firms in social dialogue models, for example, within economic and social committees. But there is also a real opportunity to look at alleviating some of these constraints. So around access to finance, this is an area obviously where EBRD is focusing, but also potentially simplifying administrative procedures for joining in. For participating in aggregation activities, for participating in skills development and research and development dissemination activities. But we know that accompanying this, there is a mindset change, which is to accept that the future of agribusiness will not look like the past of agribusiness. And this does not need to be to the detriment of smaller firms. There are opportunities, but I suppose one thing that we're trying to do with this research is to identify those areas where it's really necessary for policymakers to support and to fill in some of the gaps where the business case maybe is less strong for SMEs. Now, In terms of the second question, internationalization, I think one of the really interesting things we've seen is, yes, as noted by the respondent, there are already a number of international exchanges underway. Indeed, some of the companies, I'm thinking of Soya Protein in Serbia, is already engaged in sending technical colleagues to China, to Brazil, precisely to have direct sort of first-hand experience of technological innovation, but also organizational innovation within, in that case, within the soy processing subsector. Now, precisely what those platforms look like, I know, for example, in Georgia, there are a number of strong international links. It would strike me that that's extremely valuable. And one thing we've tried to do in the report actually is in the introduction to highlight some areas of good practice within the European Union, which could be interesting sort of stimulus, I suppose, for similar initiatives in some of the neighborhood and partnership countries we've been looking at.
Thank you, Alistair. This issue of mobility of students, Lida says, and we all know that Erasmus Plus can work also in this aspect. There will be the component of mobility of vet students. There are two more issues that are tackled, three in fact. One is the role of career guidance. Career guidance for innovation in the agribusiness sector. The second point from the chat, it is about immigrants. Yeah. So when we talk about immigrants, we might also include inclusiveness. We might also include immigrants in the discussion, which is an important issue in Turkey. And then Snezana said that she agrees very much on the promotion of agrobusiness and the opportunities it offers among young people. But we will come back to this topic during our panel as well. So what do you say about career guidance? What's the role? Just a little bit briefly, because we lack the time to move ahead. Alistair?
Yes, I mean, this is something we've seen particularly in those firms who have established their own internal skills development infrastructure, a company training academy. Career guidance is so crucial because what we're talking about is not simply a single entry point to the sector, but a trajectory for development. Now, that's crucial in terms of inclusion for the reasons I discussed earlier in terms of the vertical segregation, so creating opportunities for promotion for a broader range of the population, but also in terms of changing perceptions of the sector. If there is perceived to be that career development potential within the sector, which is clearly articulated, for example, through providing a career framework upon recruitment, then that can really effectively help to address some of those misperceptions around the career opportunities within the sector. Now, moving on to migration, this is potentially a huge topic. I think I will just very briefly focus on some of the issues relating to internal migration in Turkey, where we know that there are, and I hope that colleagues from Development Workshop are able to join, who've been working particularly on this topic. Clearly, that's a very vulnerable population, the internal migrant population. There are also, for example, in tea, in the Black Sea region, there were real challenges last year because, typically the cross-border migrant population who would come to assist with the harvest weren't able to come. There have been some really innovative approaches, I think, particularly from the Turkish side in terms of facilitating local recruitment, working with local authorities, working with local stakeholders in order to meet that seasonal labor demand. But clearly there is a much broader question for global agribusiness around the crucial role of labor migration and how that factors in both to inclusive opportunities, but how it also factors into what we see in these trends of sort of increasing deglobalization, restrictions on migration, and also increasing automation. So I would caveat my response by saying this is a massive sort of ancillary subject, but I think it's one thing we've really tried to address in the report is that, you know, responsible recruitment, understanding vulnerability of particular workers, including seasonal labor migrants, is really crucial part of this inclusive skills trajectory that we're outlining.
Thank you very much, Alistair, for that. There is one point by Shukrata Manov. What strategies have you observed in countries to develop effective lifelong learning models and encourage a stronger focus on skills rather than educational qualifications? Well, I would suggest not to treat this question at this meeting today, but just to inform you that we are organizing a big conference on 21-25 June. It's 1 week conference, and we do it ETF with UNESCO in cooperation with EBRD, ILO and UNICEF to talk exactly about this issue. So maybe what we can do, Erika, is also to share the link to the website, to the site of the conference for the participants to this meeting to be invited as well there and cover this aspect that it is part of what we discuss, but so big that we cannot really discuss it today. Then there is a comment about the agricultural Syrian workers in Turkey, but I think we have not exhausted, but we have tackled this issue already. Now, I would like to do a little bit of timekeeping. It is 10:26 and we have to stop at 11 o'clock for a coffee. We have two more contributions by Alistair. One, it is for a deeper dive on the 5 countries. And then we would like to share with you also the policy pointers. That is the final conclusion, let's say, of our research. So, Alistair, if we can go not too quickly, but a bit quickly through the findings from research by country to be able to
certainly.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yes, and I'm glad to confirm also that the final section presenting the policy pointers will be a shorter section. So I will not deprive you of your coffee.
No.
So for now, let's look in some more detail at trends and lessons learned from each of the 5 countries. And again, at this point, it's appropriate, I think, just to offer our thanks to the case study companies who gave us their time and experience and insights. So many thanks. So, Georgia. Can you see the Georgia slide? Because it's not showing up. Yes, good. So approximately 40% of Georgia's total employment is in agriculture, and agribusiness is central to Georgia's economy. The government recognizes the need to modernize the sector.
Sorry, Al, you've skipped to Morocco.
Many thanks, sir. There's a slight delay with the slides. Let's hope that they move. Okay, my apologies. So on the skill side in Georgia, in recent years, there have been significant efforts, particularly by the government, to undertake systematic reform of the national TVET framework, developing a new institutional architecture for the VET system. At the sectoral level, it's particularly interesting. There have been important efforts to support skills development through the creation of sectoral skills organizations, and the pilot is in the agricultural sector, AgroDuo. So AgroDuo fosters public-private collaboration, establishing educational programs in collaboration with the private sector, meaning that students can acquire competitive skills that respond and closely align with labor market demands. So in light, though, of ongoing technical and soft skill shortages frequently reported in Georgian agribusiness, many companies, including Tubivino, which is a major wine producer, have turned to developing their internal talent pipeline to fill skills gaps. And Tubo Vino is particularly keen to recruit and promote women within their workforce, having had very positive experiences, and it allows them to benefit from the competitive advantages associated with a more diverse workforce. Georgian agribusinesses still face challenges in innovation, though, including high costs, risks associated with new investments, and a lack of suitable skills and adaptability within the labour force. There are notable examples of innovation, however. Looking at Adjara Group, the Udabno project, I hope that we have a colleague here from Udabno today. It aims to develop 4,000 hectares of rural area into farmable land, and with the help of the local population, establish it as an agricultural hub and a sustainable tourism destination. Adjara is aiming to cultivate a partnership with local farmers and assist in their ongoing inclusion, by using a significant percentage of locally grown products in the company's establishments, hotels, catering, and integrating the producers into the value chain. Adjara is also developing the first urban vertical farming project in the region called the Space Farm, which uses 75% less water, conserves energy, and grows fresh organic produce handpicked for the group's restaurants. Now, Georgia's domestic market is small, and expansion of the agribusiness sector will need to be predominantly export-led. Efforts to meet export standards, particularly in the context of the recent trade arrangements, DCFTA, with the European Union, have been identified as a key driver of innovation in recent years. And a number of companies have noted that those innovative companies with the organizational capacity and skills to meet exports, food safety standards, for example, are able to command higher prices for their products and a much better place to respond and adapt to new sanitary regulations adopted as a public health measure in response to the pandemic. A number of Georgian companies we spoke to reported that the pandemic itself acted as a catalyst for innovation and created incentives to introduce new business processes and technological developments, including e-commerce and delivery. And further innovations developed in direct response to the crisis. Adjara Group reported that significant disruption to other segments of the economy gave them the opportunity to position themselves as an employer of choice to urban workers, both in terms of being able to offer job stability, but also COVID-secure outdoor employment. Moving to Morocco. As we know, agri-food is a strategic sector for Morocco because of its economic and social importance. FENAGRI, who I hope are able to join us today, report that the agri-food sector employs more than 150,000 people, 22% of the national industrial workforce. And the agri-food sector is undergoing a period of advanced technological change and expansion to meet new export markets, which is itself driving innovation in Morocco. In particular, LCM, Les Conserves de Meknes, highlighted to us how, in order to improve quality and controls along the value chain from production to distribution to meet foreign demand and requirements, they had innovated to create a more structured value chain and with greater traceability. As I noted earlier, a number of innovations in Morocco have been required to cope with the climatic situation, both in terms of drought and climate change. But there are a range of potential constraints to growth in agri-food, from high capital investments required for new technologies, which are typically out of reach for smaller companies, to the shortage of skills needed to manage ongoing changes. A really interesting example from Le Safre Maroc, which is the national leader for the fermentation industry, shows that even while digitalization of the sector can be disruptive, resulting in some roles being substituted by automation, there is potential to upskill workers whose jobs may be at risk and thereby to retain those jobs. So they report that Le Safre, the company approach is to protect jobs with innovation, upskilling workers with new technology and creating efficiency gains, and to develop its talent pipeline. Le Safre Maroc is working closely with universities, innovation centers, and startups. It's also working with the Office of Vocational Training and Employment Promotion and the National Agency for Promotion of Employment and Competencies to support training, to validate necessary competencies before recruiting. So in 2020, the Moroccan government launched a new agri-strategy, Generation Green, which aims to support the development of 350,000 jobs, focusing particularly on human capital development and promoting the sector towards youth. Now, research and development is crucially important to this development, and the Ministry of Commerce and Industry has given a strong signal to entrepreneurs looking for new projects by launching a project bank. The Digital Development Agency has also launched a smart factory, or is developing a smart factory to help with the digital transition. A really important development in Morocco is the advent of aggregated agricultural production sites, agropoles, in key regions to strengthen those upstream and downstream linkages and to attract agri-food investments. And it's really created a bridge, the agropole model, between agriculture and agri-food, and an important role in framing partnerships with universities for transferring technologies. In terms of the impacts of COVID-19 in Morocco, we have really an important example of a sort of digitalization response from Cosumar, which developed a digital solution called Atessir in partnership with the Agence pour le Développement Agricole, the ADA, meaning that all operations from sugar harvesting, automatic encoding of plots, allocation of agricultural machinery, transportation and delivery, right through to payment by bank transfer of farmers, has now been digitalized. Also responding to the challenges of COVID-19 in Morocco, Café Carillon developed e-commerce and digital marketing solutions and have put in place new strategies to reach the final consumer directly. And thanks to these innovations, Café Carillon has achieved a better performance than the average of its direct competitors. Through to Serbia, innovation is in the ascendant in Serbian agriculture. My apologies for the delay with the slides. Let's carry on and maybe the slides will catch up with us. Digitization is a key policy priority for the agri-food sector in Serbia, and the Ministry of Agriculture offers a number of services aimed at promoting innovation in the sector through its agricultural advisory and professional services. Agri-food producers currently benefit from the support of around 16 specialized institutions focused on introducing technologically advanced production. Individual firms are taking their own initiative. Key amongst these is Sunoco, a member of MK Group, which opened a research and development center at the end of last year, the first of its kind in Serbia. So by applying the latest technology, scientific research and good agricultural practice, the R&D center can optimize agro-technical approaches, leading to a reduction in production costs, increased yields, and reducing negative impacts on the environment. And the center itself engages with a broad range of peers in the sector, organizing lectures for a range of sugar beet producers across Serbia, and also providing extension and advisory services for contract farmers in the supply chain. Anticipating legislation on the full use of electronic documents, Sunoko is also actively working on process digitization and is currently testing e-delivery notes. Now, Serbian agri-food firms are also looking to employees for active participation in business innovation. For example, food processor Marbo runs an annual program with graduate recruits to generate new product ideas or ideas on how to improve existing product lines. Process-related innovation in Serbian agri-food tends to involve the introduction of new and improved methods for manufacturing and producing, as well as processing and export. So the hazard analysis and critical control points, HACCP certification, is crucial to that, as well as broader implementation of the EU acquis on food safety. The pandemic has resulted in a range of other innovative responses from Serbian agri-food firms, including product innovation. Again, Sunoko invested in a new plant to produce alcohol at the site of its sugar beet processing plant in Kovačica. This opportunity and decision came about through the growing demand for alcohol used in sanitizers as a result of COVID-19. Previously, molasses, which is a raw material for alcohol production, was a byproduct that the company would sell on. So while skills gaps and mismatches are significant in Serbian agribusiness, the authorities have taken numerous steps to mitigate these challenges, including through the adoption of a law on dual education, providing work-based learning for secondary vocational education students, including in agribusiness. And skills development in the agribusiness sector is supported by the Sector Skills Council for Agriculture, which includes representatives of numerous institutions and the private sector. While younger workers are significantly underrepresented in the Serbian agribusiness workforce, a number of firms have taken steps to counter these challenges. Marbo, which is part of the PepsiCo group, invests in talent development through an internship program aimed at young university graduates without prior work experience. And similarly, soy processor Sojaprotein engages secondary school and university graduates with no prior experience to be guided and monitored by experienced staff as part of a mentoring program. On to Turkey. So, the key business drivers for process and systems innovation in Turkish agribusiness are food safety, quality standards, alongside environmental and social standards, which constitute a de facto market access requirement for higher value export markets. Agro-industry research and development is focusing particularly on food processing technologies, food science, and food packaging and preservation. Now, while COVID-19 has placed real pressures on agribusiness in Turkey, it's also forced innovation and change. In some cases, this has precipitated nascent developments, such as e-commerce. E-commerce was already identified in the government's digital transformation program as a crucial development. And the global pandemic has given a significant boost to online grocery retail in Turkey. There have also been notable responses to the pandemic in terms of product innovation. So grain and pulse processor Yela Agro, as well as honey producer Balparmak, observed a real increased interest for their products owing to a rise in health consciousness among consumers in the wake of the pandemic, both domestically and internationally. There is an increasing emphasis on innovation in agriculture at both policy and strategy level. In Turkey, a Department of Agricultural Technologies and Mechanization was recently established precisely to work with the public and private sectors on digital transformation of agriculture. This process has been accelerated in practice by the pandemic. For example, for Anadolu Etap, who we will hear colleagues from later, the leading fruit producer in the country, the pandemic has hastened digital change and transformation within the company. And the company reports that it feels like the geographic reach of the company has increased, and by moving key marketing events such as fairs or exhibitions online, the company saved not only time but also reduced its environmental impact. Turkish agribusiness companies are also active in skills development. Tabgida, the country's leading quick service restaurant operator, runs the Tab Academy as a training and development platform for its employees. And coming back to that question about career development, crucially including a career development component. Tabgida, for example, provides each new recruit with a career progression and training plan and performs regular skills assessments for its staff. Lastly, looking at the inclusion dimension in Turkey, which is vital, women account for 44% of the agricultural labour force, but are generally concentrated in lower paid, lower skilled occupational segments with fewer opportunities for promotion and career development. Now, in-company continuing training can be a really important vector for gender inclusion, as I said, where it enables professional development and career progression for women in sectors that are traditionally subject to a high degree of segregation, such as supermarket retail. A good example here, Migros supermarkets have developed a number of initiatives to position the firm as an employer of preference for Turkish women, and both Balparmak and Anadolu Etap have also highlighted their efforts in promoting more inclusive value chains, providing targeted training to women working throughout their agri-food supply chains. So finally, Uzbekistan. Uzbekistan has set ambitious targets for the development of its agribusiness sector. The strategy for agriculture development in Uzbekistan for 2020-2030 targets $20 billion in agricultural exports by 2030. Indeed, the demands and opportunities of export markets are an important driver of innovation among Uzbek firms seeking enhanced access to potentially higher value markets. For example, Gold Dried Fruits Export, an Uzbek processor of agricultural products, found that by obtaining certifications and upgrading production standards, they've increased their international sales opportunities. A number of Uzbek firms, including AgroCity, also identified language skills as a need to work with new markets. Another of the key objectives of the 2020-2030 Uzbek strategy is supporting integrated research and development. Now, a number of Uzbek agribusiness firms are already taking active steps to build on linkages with higher education institutions. Agromir, which is the largest juice producer in Uzbekistan, identified a skills gap in terms of finance and business management. As a result, they established a cooperation agreement with Tashkent Finance Institute and the University of Economy for senior staff from Agromir management and HR to provide guest lectures at the university in order to create stronger ties and to promote the company among students. Overall, COVID-19 in Uzbekistan has brought new emphasis to the value of jobs in agri-food in Uzbekistan. The sector's been much more resilient to the economic effects than many other segments. Food retailers have experienced significant expansions and needed to recruit additional staff. Indeed, a key feature of Uzbek supermarket Korzinka's COVID-19 response has been an intensification of its online learning and development program called iSpring. Staff training at Korzinka is now available 24/7 online, and this is supported by a business case. Korzinka has noted an uptick in employee engagement with training in the wake of their shift to a new online accessible format, and considers that investment in in-house training and professional development contributes to their attractiveness as an employer. Companies such as Korzinka have also taken steps to address the supply side barriers to inclusion, including providing flexible forms of working to accommodate work-life balance, supporting employees' child and care responsibilities. For parents and students, Korzinka offers flexible hours conditions to help them combine working with other duties or studies, and also operates a company-wide policy that provides for 10% of vacancies vacancies to be available for university students to work part-time. In addition to part-time roles, Corzinco offers formal internships at headquarters for students each year, and many interns indeed return for full-time employment at the company upon graduation. Let's wrap up on the companies for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alastair. To tell you the truth, your presentation about the countries gave me a feeling of energy, because we can see a lot of innovation coming up by employers. We see ambition from the part of the countries to develop the sector. And even here in our chat, we can identify two more issues, one from Turkey, which says that there is an increasing demand by startups for agri-food sector, and this could be an opportunity for Turkey. While in Serbia, the point is made of social enterprises in agribusiness, and even that some ministries in their strategic documents address issues of the sector. So it is obviously a sector that attracts attention, and there is another message here. Oh yeah, it's from Ina. There is interest, there is innovation, there is ambition. So I think the question is now how we can move to the next step, which is about how to ensure that this innovation is diffused, if I use the right word, to the whole sector, to the different companies of the sector, and how we can achieve scale for change and sustainable development of the sector. So I don't know if our participants would like to make any other contribution in terms of reflections, even live if they wish. If not, what we can do now, it is to go to the policy pointers, because I think that this is also a very important part of the reform. Okay, all this is fine, but what's exactly the next step? What we could do more and better? To you, Alastair. No, excuse me, there is sorry, apologies. There is another contribution by Serbia about the youth employability promotion implemented by GIZ with the Ministry of Youth and Sports. And it is about people who saw their chance for self-employment in agriculture. Yeah, it's about 500 people supported. Yeah, okay. So
I will just wrap up with a presentation of the policy pointers. I did just want to come back to that really important point about the opportunities for startups. And I think, unfortunately, we don't have time to present all of the details, and hopefully all of the detail of the report will become available. But one thing we've seen is, for example, around addressing food waste. This is a real opportunity for digital startups driven by young people to come in and create a difference, driving a sustainability agenda, providing a public good, also to speak to the social enterprise. And, one example in Turkey, there's a startup called Oreka, which is basically matching, potential food waste with potential consumers. And that's a profit-making entity. So I think there is so much opportunity for that sort of creative, innovative thinking in this space, and tying through to that triple bottom line of food security, sustainability, and livelihoods. So just on the final section then, obviously a central element of our research has been trying to look at these linkages between skills and inclusion and innovation and resilience and the greening agenda. And in principle, we all know what the model looks like. A more innovative agribusiness can enhance productivity while reducing its environmental footprint and creating better and broader opportunities. Of course, skills are a really important entry point to build resilience and to support innovation and to create inclusive economic opportunities for the future. A skilled workforce is a driver of innovation and a prerequisite for the adoption of technology, and adapting employees' skills and roles to new ways of working and new market realities in the aftermath of the pandemic will be crucial to building operating model resilience. But at the same time, innovation itself is a key driver of inclusive growth in agri-food systems. The introduction of new technologies and other forms of innovation drive demand for a wider range of higher skilled, higher valued jobs and create opportunities for a broader base of workers. Now, our work suggests that private sector agribusiness is meaningfully engaged in human capital development. And I think that's very much what Anastasia was alluding to. But there is scope to support a more systematic resilience and recovery, where these efforts are linked to policy measures attuned to the inclusive skills dimension. COVID-19 in particular creates windows of opportunity for public policy relating to skills and inclusion and innovation in agribusiness. And we know that the pandemic has acted as a catalyst for innovation in agri-food industries worldwide, creating incentives to introduce new business processes and technological developments. So we've developed a series of suggested policy pointers which are directed both to policymakers and to private agribusiness firms. They're not intended as recommendations per se, but rather pointers towards positive and constructive directions of travel, which can be more broadly applicable to the range of partner economies where ETF and EBRD work. So there are 5 areas for these policy pointers. Let me just give a brief overview. Firstly, ensuring that an inclusive skills dimension is integrated into a broader range of sector strategies and policies relevant to agribusiness. You know, an overarching theme that we have identified in our research, which purposefully brings together a multifaceted range of policy fields, is the scope to improve the coherence of policy packages by integrating the skills and inclusion dimension into agricultural greening strategies, innovation policies, and the development of the digital economy. Secondly, identifying and capitalizing on adaptations and innovations necessitated by COVID-19 and pursuing immediate opportunities for inclusive skills development. This includes areas where agribusiness companies require policy support to maintain positive adaptations and innovations spurred by the pandemic, including business development support services, e-commerce and digitization support, and focusing particularly on the needs of agribusiness SMEs with lower levels of access to ICT, so information communications technology, skills, and infrastructure. Thirdly, actively supporting the innovative development of private sector agribusiness, including early stage innovation for a broader range of smaller firms, and fostering express linkages between innovation activities, agribusiness sustainability, and meeting consumer demand, including higher value export opportunities. This includes building linkages between state policy on innovation and agribusiness companies' activities, and seeking to showcase relevant and achievable innovation within the private sector, within agribusiness, identifying the linkages to skills necessary to enable and sustain this innovation. So it's about creating a showcase for what current good practice looks like and seeking to expand that activity. Fourth, integrating and defragmenting approaches to agri-food skills development in order to deliver an ambitious vision of agri-food transformation, bringing together state, intermediary, and private actors, including smaller firms, to ensure that skills can drive innovation and productivity in the sector. You know, coordination is central to making skills systems responsive to the needs of agribusiness and to designing and delivering relevant curricula. And forward-looking skills needs analysis and skills anticipation are needed to inform policy and skills matching in practice. Finally, actively promoting a more inclusive agribusiness, which can enhance innovation and productivity while reducing its environmental footprint and drive demand for higher skilled, higher value jobs, which create better opportunities for a broader base of workers to improve their livelihoods. In particular, it's important to recognize that inclusion can have a central role in generating the particular value of specific agri-food products. For example, in the case of provenance-based products, a core element of the product's value is derived from its association with local producers and communities and their specific knowledge and skills. So inclusive value chains that incorporate diverse local producers are fundamental to the successful marketing of provenance-based products in both local and international markets. Similarly, an increased preference among some consumers for products associated with positive social and environmental impacts, including those whose production benefits marginalized socioeconomic groups, is a further means by which inclusive business practices link directly to product value. On that, I'll finish the policy pointers.
Well, thank you very much, Alistair, again. Are there any contributions from the participants at this stage? Would you like to share something in relation to what Alistair told us as policy pointers? Or would you like to add something to what has been said already? I think that my colleague Christina says that if there is any evidence from the companies having innovative skills development plans on how it impacted their business results and growth. So this is a question, the evidence.
Yeah, I mean, if I can just speak to that briefly, I think one of the key lessons from this research is the need to develop data both at the national sectoral level and at the enterprise level. One of the challenges when talking about agri-food is that it doesn't translate to a statistical category. So it brings together agriculture together with elements of manufacturing, retail, and trade. So it's difficult to aggregate those data at the sectoral level. What we do see from enterprise is very strong testimony, particularly around the direct impacts on workforce retention and stability. So keeping continuity of skills within the enterprise and capitalizing on those skills, which according to that testimony leads not only to a more collegiate working environment, but also production efficiencies, quality, and an enhanced sort of external perception of that company. So I do think when we're looking at the business case, it's important not simply to look at short-term output measures, but to look at the longer term perspective in terms of the brand and reputation of the firm, its perceived attractiveness as an employer, given that we know that that's a challenge potentially in some of the countries and some of the sectors, but also to look at the longer term development in terms of a more inclusive working community. And we know that innovation itself is powered by ideas, and creating some degree of cognitive diversity where ideas can be exchanged and constructively challenged is crucial to any form of the sort of the socio-technical adoption of technology and innovation more broadly. So I think the answer is there is very strong testimony. We need all of us to work on the data to substantiate that testimony.
Indeed, Alistair. There is one question. Will you have any policy approaches how the countries can convert the traditional food firms into innovative firms? I think that in the report we provide these policy approaches. We cannot exhaust this now, but maybe Alistair, you would like to say 2 words on that?
Yes, I think crucial to this is looking at how to create sort of inclusive ecosystems for agri-food development. And increasingly, I think it's helpful to think about a system, an agri-food system, rather than a linear supply chain. And two measures. So first of all, where there are really advanced larger firms, how they can work with peers on a pre-competitive basis in terms of sharing experience and innovation. Secondly, how to work with the value chain, so producers and intermediaries within the supply chain, in order to create a more resilient supply chain and a competitive advantage. So I think it's working on those two axes, the sort of the cross-sectoral collaboration and the value chain collaboration.
Excellent, thank you. And the last question we take, it is about subsistence farmers. If there are any actions or measures by either firms or governments to engage with undeclared subsistence farmers to ensure they benefit too from the COVID recovery.
I mean, there have been individual efforts by firms in terms of working with producers, small producers within their value chain. And there are very important efforts by government. And this takes us to broader social protection and public health measures. But clearly, I think one of the things we try and identify in the report is that one pressing dimension of inclusion is to meet the needs of some of the most vulnerable, and the most vulnerable tend to be in the primary stages of agricultural cultivation. And what we're saying, I suppose, in terms of the overall trend towards the transformation of the agribusiness sector, is that some of those vulnerable workers in primary agriculture are at risk. And there are a number of policy measures, as well as measures which firms can take to work with those producers. But there will, as part of a structural transformation, there will be shifts to the livelihood opportunities for a number of vulnerable primary producers. And that implies a broader role for government in terms of labor reallocation, skills, reskilling and upskilling, and also social protection systems.
Well, I think we have covered in 1 hour and 5 minutes an enormous ground. The topic is very broad, is very interesting, and is very important for the times we live, of change and opportunities for inclusiveness and for innovation. So I think it is time to break for a coffee. And we will come back at 11:15. I would like us to applaud Alistair, please. Clap your hands, because really the work that his team have done is extremely rich, as we can see. And also today, I mean, now he deserves also his coffee too, and and a glass of water at least. So we resume at 11:15 with an exciting panel discussion we will have with distinguished participants from our partner countries. So see you in 15, or not 15 minutes, in 8 minutes. So have your coffee.
le piqûre ديال les abeilles.
So, Erika, are we ready to resume?
Yes, I think we are all here. Thank you so much for coming back, and thank you to Alistair and Anastasia for the previous session. It was really interesting. And thank you to all the panelists that you will meet in a couple of minutes. And yes, I think we can go ahead.
Well, thank you very much. So first of all, thank you for coming back from the small break we had. Now, this second part of our discussion today will be a panel discussion, and we have very distinguished panelists. I would like to present them to you. It's Ms. Tamar Kitiashvili, Deputy Minister in the Ministry of Education, Science, Culture and Sports in Georgia. Ms. Snezana Klasnia, Minister Advisor, Ministry of Youth and Sports in the Republic of Serbia. Mr. Okuzan Besli, HR Director in Anadolu Etap, Turkey. Mr. Temunberg Reimov from FAO Uzbekistan, he's coordinator of Regional Interim Cadi Secretariat, and Monsieur Ahmed Bouzalmat, Head of Pillar 1 Projects Engineering Division in the Agency for Agricultural Development in Morocco. So you see that our panel is very diversified in terms of profile of panelists, which demonstrates that we would like to bring on the table different points of view on how the sector can be developed. The specific questions we have asked our panelists to comment upon, it is about what are the priorities for the sector of agribusiness to be developed in the new context of change in our economies and in succeeding in green and digital transition, ensuring inclusiveness. So what are the priorities? And then the second question, it is about what needs to happen in terms of skills development, in particular, to support the future of the sector. And we have a third question, which is about international dialogue and exchange of practices. Today, we had really a very, very small opportunity to exchange, but obviously, future exchange of larger scale might be important and beneficial for the countries. So having presented very briefly our distinguished panelists, I would like first to pass the floor to Tamar. Hello, Tamar.
Hello. Hello, everyone. I'm very happy to be with you today. I hope you can hear me well. Great. Thanks for a very interesting research to ETF in DBRD. I was very carefully listening to the findings and very interesting presentation. Thanks for that. I think the findings are very useful, and all of us, we could really recognize all the challenges in this report, and finding all the challenges we face in our country. And I think we are pretty on the same page in this regard. Thanks again, and I'm very happy to be with you and to answer your questions, to participate in discussion on the way of finding solutions for our future, for our joint future, I would say, because agriculture is, we all depend on that, because we are what we eat, and we are where we're living in. So the environment we are living in, and our health and our livelihood is depending from agriculture. So I would say this is the most critical and most important sector to work in. And since the human beings are the ones who are shaping the sector development, I think to take care on people at all age, youth and adults working in agriculture or to be working in agriculture is our responsibility, since we are educationalists. So I think there is quite a big hope on us and on our working agendas. I mean, the education systems in the country. So I'm happy to have this chance to discuss with you these topics, these very important topics of our planet today. Thank you.
Thank you, Tamar. In terms of skills development, would you have something to suggest us from your point of view on how we can move ahead?
Good. Then I'll go for the questions and answers, Anastasia. I think, of course, I already talked about the importance of skills in this sector. But I would say, according to our experience, this sector is very specific and needs a really different approach to be applied when it comes to the entire cycle of the skills, the development, starting from the needs identification, ending to the provision and final qualification and job placement. I think the problem is that in Georgia, it's not a problem, but it's a specificity of the sector that more than 90% of enterprises are small and medium enterprises. I would say more small enterprises, and it is very hard to get information about the needs in the sector, about the skills needs. Sometimes it is hard in the country. With the help of our international partners, we struggled we conducted a lot of studies among farmers, but it's very hard to really identify what are the development needs because the major focus goes on self-employed people or small-scale farmers, which have to develop their own skills, and sometimes it's very hard to identify own development needs. So I'm just trying to say that it's not there is nothing impossible, but it really needs to apply the different and unique set of measures to respond to the needs of agriculture sector. And then we have also, we are really proud, it was also mentioned in the presentation, we are very proud that the first sectorial skills organization we have in Georgia, and it is an umbrella organization, set of which consists of more than 10, about 12 different sectorial or subsectorial organizations. We managed to set this all together with our public-private, based on our public-private dialogue, and based on our international partner support. We managed to establish this organization. The sector managed to get self-organized in the form of umbrella, and it's a very big relief for us, for education sector, I would say, because now we have the respective counterpart. We can ask them, we can cooperate with them, so we can get the impulses from this sector, and they can use different and apply different methods how to get this information. And one is the identification of the needs, but the second is providing respective and needed resources and needed services for the sector. And it is really very hard, even when it comes to qualification development, to consolidate all these needs, which are very diverse from region to region, from subsector to subsector. It's really very challenging, but we decided to have a more work-based learning approach and to strengthen the diversity of work-based learning, different models of work-based learning. We are not only applying the dual education, which is possible with some subsectors and some farmers, but also we have introduced the collaborative learning approach, which is more flexible and farmer-centered, I would say, and it helped us to gain the trust, I would say, from the farmer side and from the agriculture side. But still, we see that the most resources should go for the adult education, for the retraining and upskilling for the farmers, rather than to the long-term solutions of the skills challenges. Of course, this is also ongoing, but more emphasis goes and should go on the reskilling and upskilling, because the environment is changing very fast. There is a huge need of digitalization and technology introduction to the agriculture sector. It is the pandemic showed and demonstrated it's more and more really in a more active way. So we increased the budget from the government, and also we have some international support in this way as well, to cover the needs of reskilling and upskilling in agriculture. But still, I think that beyond the regular skills the farmers need, which is the crops production or cultivation or whatever, the pure technical skills, beyond that, I would say there is a huge demand on key competences, because, for instance, when it comes to ICT skills, or even when it comes to advanced numeracy, to deal with the accounting or with finances, when it comes to entrepreneurship and fundraising, and to be open to the new opportunities, I think these are the skills which the Georgian farmers are needed to be trained in, and we are putting emphasis with the AgroDuo on this as well, because if we want to address, if we want Georgia to be competitive on the global market, we have to come up with the innovative products. We have to come up with something really different, because we cannot compete with our scale. Our scale is too small. So we need to have, in agriculture, our product should be either from the greening perspective, for the bio product, or something niche product or innovative product. So this is why I think we should put a lot of emphasis on that. We have initiated different projects like hackathons for students. The government has different programs for small grant funding, and where the emphasis is put on more innovative products and innovative projects. And this, I think, accelerates the growth in agriculture. And I would say the most important is we are all the time looking at the numbers, the productivity numbers, to what extent Georgia's agriculture really produces the share in the global, I mean, in the country's GDP, and it was really dramatic in the previous years. But after the fundings, after the grant schemes, after the skills reform in Georgia, these numbers really started to grow. Unfortunately, the pandemic was a little bit terrible process for all sectors, as well as agriculture, but still the trend is growing, and I believe that all these factors together will positively contribute to agriculture's development, proper development and inclusive growth in Georgia. And I think that the keyword here, according to our experience, is collaboration between the sectors. The government alone cannot do by the government and done by the government cannot be so efficient without proper collaboration with the sector. And I'm happy that in terms of skills, I would say we are most successful in the sector of agriculture if you compare this with the other sectors. And I think we will replicate this experience in other sectors as well. So I think we and the next point which is in our agenda, which we are going to work on together with our Agro Duo, is the greening agenda and sustainability in agriculture education. We have already introduced the new module on this with the help of UNDP, and we are going to introduce and make it as an obligatory and compulsory module of each and every qualification program in the country, as well as we have done it with the entrepreneurship module some years ago. And I believe that in a short-term perspective, it will show its results. Sorry, I tried to be very quick. I want to say many things, but time is limited.
Of course, but I think you really tackled essential points, like the need to identify the skill needs. Sometimes small companies in particular, they don't even know what skills they need. It was also a comment made in the previous session by one of our participants on the chat. The importance of to develop an ecosystem where skills development goes together with innovation and company development. The adult learning, the key competencies, we talk very often about technical competencies, but this difference in mindsets is extremely important, and the openness to innovation and change. And of course, your point about creativity, to find where your niche is, to create new products and build on what the sector can do to develop. And last but not least, the aspect of collaboration. So we thank you very much for that. And now we will pass immediately to our next panelist to see another point of view. This is the point of view of companies. So our next panelist represents Anadolu Etap, the biggest company in Turkey in the fresh fruit and derivatives products such as juices, and having a motto from farms to table. That's a very nice motto. And of course, Etap has a program, an outstanding program for women inclusion, as well as support to child education. So we would very much welcome Mr. Besli, HR Director from Anadolu Etap, to hear from you what are the developments on the sector and how do you see the role of skills for such an important company. So the floor to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited. During the pandemic, we are all close to our homes and offices, but with such an events, we can see each other. Although we cannot travel abroad, it's very exciting and motivating event. Thank you so much. I hear lots of new things. To start with, I want to briefly mention about my company, Anadolu Etap. It's a fruit company. It's a company that someone can be proud of, because we established the company in 2010 with a joint venture with two big conglomerates in Turkey, with the motto of healthy fruits for healthy generations, our mission. Now we have 3 fruit processing plants in different parts of Turkey, 8 farms, 5 million trees on a land of 3,000 hectares of land. So they are all our babies. We also collect fruits from more than 4,000 villages in Turkey. So we touch lots of lives in Turkey, especially farms in the villages. When it comes to our products, we sell our products to within the Turkey as fresh fruit and fruit concentrate, but also more than 65 countries in the world. So before going to priorities of agribusiness from our point of view, I want to summarize some of the mega trends that we are facing. I'm sure you all know, but I want to make a picture. First one is impacts of climate change. We see all adverse effects of climate change, and it's June in Turkey. It should be a sunny day, but it's almost cold and it's raining. It's not something usual, but we have, maybe this is our new normal. Other than pandemic, climate is changing. When look at the natural resources, we have a big threat on natural resources, especially water is important for us. In the world, 75% of water is used in agriculture sector in parallel with Turkey. In our country, the big problem is we use flood irrigation rather than drip irrigation, which is a big waste of water. In the world, arable lands are decreasing, but urbanization is increasing, vice versa. Meanwhile, the world population increasing. I think we have more than 7 billion people, and will be 10 billion people in 30 years. So the food need for food is increasing with that. Meanwhile, we have to meet all these demands with productivity revolution. That's why we have to develop, maybe reskill or upskill current skills and competencies of workforce, especially in agricultural sector, which is very labor intensive. Last one I want to mention is changing consumer expectation, especially with COVID-19. We see a dramatic shift to healthy products and demand for traceability. From the beginning of our investment, what we have done, we invested heavily on precision farming tools and techniques and machinery. We work with different consultants from Spain, Italy, Poland, all around the world to employ best practices in agriculture, all the new methods, to create, of course, productivity with a large scale, but also to preserve our natural resources at the same time. For example, in our orchards, farms, we use 100% drip irrigation. We use mulch cover, special cover to protect water. Tension meters, we measure daily how much we spend on each tree, how much each tree benefits from the water. We use all analysis techniques, all techniques to measure that. We use also night drip, automated drip irrigation, not during the day, but at night, and it's all automated without any employee interruption. We have many policies I can mention. Then look at the technology side. To combat all these major forces that impact agribusiness, we need to increase use of technology to apply smart agricultural techniques in place. Anadolu ETAP within this perspective is a new model for Turkish agriculture as a private company, and we like to share these practices within Turkey and outside also Turkey. For skills part, as you know, young generation, they do not usually prefer, they don't dream to work in an agriculture company. It's really hard for us to attract and then retain talents. Young people in Turkey also, they are moving out of their villages, towns to live and work in big cities, unfortunately. That's why workforce is very important. During the pandemic, we used daily labor force. And you know, there were some strict rules to prevent people movement within the country. During the pandemic, we moved more than 2,000 workers from south part of Turkey to northwest part of Turkey to our farmers with all high-level health measures, and we had no incidents during that time. To mention about skills development, we have a program called Agro Academy, as you mentioned. We established this Agro Academy in 2012. We have a partnership with Ege University. It's one of the reputable universities in Turkey. In 2014, we gathered with academicians and prepared our sustainable agricultural principles as a company, and we put this principles on our website. We communicated and we comply with all these principles in our activities. So in Agro Academy, we train mostly daily workers. We pay special attention to select female farmers to train sustainable agricultural principles. Until now, we reached to 900 workers, and we plan to increase this figure to 3,000 in the near future with EBRD's collaboration also and Ege University. Because agriculture is one of the leading industries allowing the participation of women in the works and contribute to the economy. It's really important for us to motivate female farmers to join the program. We will extend to this program not only places, locations where our orchards are located, but to different parts of Turkey. During the pandemic, what we have done other than this, as you know, we started an operational excellence program as an agricultural company. We gave 2,000 hours of training, lean management, Six Sigma trainings to workers, technicians, engineers to improve all our processes. And they came up until now 30 brilliant projects. 3 of them already finalized. We see their enthusiasm and motivation to improve their processes. It's our one of the key targets. And we call the program, the name is Collective Mind. Let's get together and improve everything together. The aim, of course, increase quality, increase product, and also preserve our natural resources. During this pandemic, we shift to digital work platform in all our companies, our processes. It's a big shift, and the name of the program is Digital Roots. We are strengthening our roots with digitalization. And all our processes from farm to the customer are managed on SAP. We monitor all data daily and analyze and improve our systems. At the end of 2019, we established 2 R&D centers. One is in our Mersin plant. The other one is our Tairova plant in our orchard. They are working on different projects, but we focus on post-harvest losses mainly, I can say. Lastly, to use our time effectively, as I said, just from the beginning, our aim was to bring best practices in the world, to learn best practices and adopt those practices, varieties to Turkey. We make many trials. Of course, we failed many times, but we learned a lot. And we still looking for new opportunities to learn, to work with different nationalities, different companies. And such an events and platforms are really great opportunities to learn, to share our ideas and experiences. I'd like to thank you for this opportunity in the name of my company and for myself. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Mesli, we thank you very much for this contribution. First of all, for your reference to issues of sustainability. We are becoming many on this world, on this planet, and the more responsibly we use the resources of this planet, the more future we'll have on it, I think. Yeah. So it is extremely important that you mentioned, and not only you mentioned it, but you demonstrated through what you told us on how actually we work, your company works towards these processes for sustainability. I would like also to pick up on your point about the academy and the training you provide for sustainable agriculture methods to the farmers. I think this is a demonstration of what Alistair told us before about the importance of innovative companies and the role they can play to develop the skills of suppliers. So I think it is an extremely important demonstration of what we are saying also in our recommendations.
Just to mention, this Agro Academy is not limited to our suppliers.
Okay, so it's even further.
Our mission as a company, how we see our values to contribute to society and environmental economy. So we don't select only our suppliers.
Excellent. So that's a good point because it goes even further in terms of social responsibility of the company. And certainly what you mentioned about cooperation with other companies in other countries to learn this mutual learning, to become all more intelligent, I think it is extremely important, as well as all the work you are doing to improve operational processes in the company and innovation through digital means. So, we thank you very much. Thank you. Now we will pass to another topic that has been already discussed. This is about youth. Yeah, and we have said before that the sector needs skills, and this is not only skills, technical skills, but there are people who work in the sector. The sector seems to be not attractive for young people in the different countries. So now we pass to our next speaker, Snezana. Your ministry does work about this topic a lot. So if you would like to share with us what you think from your perspectives are the priorities in order to ensure that young people get involved in agriculture, they get more attracted, and or in agri-food more generally, and what you probably do on this field. the floor to you.
Thank you very much for inviting me on this panel, and also that I had the opportunity to learn from this research about also the young people and other citizens about the agri-business and what can we do. If we are talking about the Ministry of Youth and Sport and the government of Serbia, I must say that one of the main goals of the national youth strategy is the better employability of the young people through cross-sectorial cooperation and coordination. That means that agriculture and food production is an important channel for employment, and so it is important for youth also. According to the law on youth, youth in Serbia are people aged from 15 up to 30 years, and about 48.9% are women, and they are 70.8% of the whole population in Serbia. But also we can see that near 40% of the young people in Serbia lives in the rural areas, and the government is putting very much effort to help them, to give them incentives, especially for their employment and self-employment. It's done provided by the Ministry of Agriculture and the ministry responsible for the education also and the social protection, Ministry of Labor, ministry which is responsible for the economy. Also, we have the IPAD incentives funds and incentives of the local municipality. But the Ministry of Youth and Sport also put a special intention to the better employability of the young people. So every year we give the money to the NGO organizations and the local self-governments and local youth offices to put their ideas according to the goals of the National Youth Strategy. And if we are talking about the young people in the rural areas, because the agriculture is mainly in that field, in last 2 years through open calls, we supported 22 projects. When approving the project, the special attention is paid to inclusion, primarily the gender inclusion, and also how to involve in the project the people from the marginalized group. So there are some of the criteria that must be fulfilled if the organizations give the money from the Ministry of Youth and Sport. I would like to stress that then in 2020, the new government established the new Ministry of Countryside Care. This is something new in Serbia because our priority is to put the real chance to everyone in the village to have the equal opportunity for good quality of the life. That means also for the young people, because as we heard from Georgia and from Turkey, there is a lot of the young people and others who live their cities where they were born. Agribusiness, of course, provides the great opportunities for young people to improve their knowledge, business skills, digital skills. This field, this sector gives them a great opportunity to work from home. And it is especially important during the COVID-19 pandemics. This is something which can be learned from the pandemic. But taking into account the importance of environmental protection, in Serbia was made a roadmap for circular economy. Young people are also active in this field, and one of the examples is the recently prepared Regional Green Youth Charter. This was created by the young people within the project of the European Movement in Serbia, funded by the Fund for the Western Balkans. This is only one example how can we involve the young people in this field, and this green economy is also very important for the agro sector. And I must stress that if we are talking about the gender issue, that in Serbia, according to the statistics, Eurostat and our Republic Statistic Office, we have the very big gender gap when we are talking about the self-employment. Only 23% of the young women are self-employed, or other are men. So we must put much more efforts how to empower young women who are living, especially, and want to be entrepreneurs on the how to do that. In the other field, if we are talking about the employability in a whole, there is a 2% more employers who are the men. If you're talking about the terms of the skills which are needed, really, especially the skills for the young people, of course, that it is important to have the competencies and knowledge how the important is green economy, how to develop of production and marketing of organic food, for example, because the organic food is one of the trends. Also, the young people are interested in that field. To encourage self-confidence. If you want to have your own company, you must have the self-confidence to do that, but not only that, you must have knowledge how to do that, where you can ask, inform, and where can you have the money, because there is a lot of incentives in Serbia giving to the young people who wants to have their own company, how to do that. And it's I think that it's very important to have all as we say, key competencies for the long life learning. The young people, but also all others must be should be the learners. You learn the whole life. And I must say that if we are talking about international dialogue and exchange, it is also important topic, and that provide the youth really opportunities for exchange, for example, of the good practice in the areas. And I think that it's very important that when we think about that, to use the funds and to inform the young people, especially what funds are really existing. For example, funds for the European Union, funds from the UN agencies and all others who are giving the funds for the different programs and projects. And as someone mentioned in the previous part of this event, it's very important that Serbia is part of the program country in the Erasmus Plus project, so we can do, and our people and edge organizations can have a good partners from Turkey also, but also for those those countries who are not programming they can be the partners, for example. And we were talking about our cooperation with the GIZ. I must say that we now have preparing the new program with the GIZ, which when the Ministry of Youth and Sport will be the main partners. It is the program who promote the youth in the rural area. So within this program, we can put much more effort also for the agribusiness and how to encourage them and to promote how they can be proud if they work on the farm. And but that means that there must be the campaign about that, because young people and of course peer education. And I would also like to stress that young people they really want to work, but usually they do not have so much information. And of course, this is important to have the skills through education system, I think, to formal education, but also very important to different part of the non-formal education. And we are lucky in Serbia that we have the law of dual education, and now it will be done also not only on the vet schools, but also on the university levels. It's important, and sectorial skills councils, and it's important to have the qualification framework for the also occupation in the agribusiness sector.
Thank you very much, Susanna. Very rich your input. Thank you for highlighting the importance of interinstitutional cooperation for employability of young people. Is everybody's responsibility, so we have to work together, but also the opportunities that the green economy can provide for their employment also in rural areas. And I like also to thank you for talking about GIZ project, because this brings us to our next speaker, from FAO, because international actors are involved in this process of modernization of the sector of agriculture. The sector is very agribusiness. The sector is crucial also for the 2030 agenda. And I would like to ask our colleague from FAO, Mr. Reimhoff, to take the floor to tell us how he thinks about the future of the sector and how skills are important in this respect. So the floor to you, Mr. Reimhoff. I think we cannot hear you.
Hello. Hi. Can you hear me now? I'm sorry. All right. They do hear me, right? All right. So thank you very much for a very interesting presentation. Thank you very much, colleagues, for also for sharing their opinion and their vision of the future of agribusiness. They were all very useful and interesting. Also, this kind of opinion exchange and knowledge, international knowledge exchange, I think for me, indeed, it is very useful and valuable. So let me start with then the FAO's regional and global initiatives in the regard of developing agribusiness and greening opportunities. So in September 2020, FAO has launched its Green Cities Initiative, which is aimed at improving the livelihoods and well-being of urban and peri-urban populations in at least 100 cities around the world in the next 3 years. And also they're looking forward to have like 1,000 green cities joined by 2030. Also, it involves the public-private sector engagements, academia, agribusiness, the government, and other stakeholders of the government. If we come back to Uzbekistan, FAO Uzbekistan, what we're doing here in our country is that regarding the, for example, let's say the digital agriculture, we have launched recently, like 3 weeks ago, there was a launch of a new project, which is a joint project with Vietnam, which is called a Smart Farming for Future Generations, in which the digital technologies and smart methods of agriculture are going to be applied, used, and also one of the components of the project also is a capacity building, enhancing the knowledge of the technical skills of the staff. Another, I can mention a lot of stuff. Am I going in the right way? So that, or is there any specific thing that I should mention? Because also, no. Yeah.
It is fine. Just if you can use 2-3 more minutes just to give the opportunity also to our panelists from Morocco.
Yeah, of course. I will try to be very brief.
The key things you consider necessary.
All right. So also we have a project which is called CASILEM, which is Central Asian countries sustainable, which is focused on sustainable land management, and as one of the components of the CASILEM project, which is being implemented by FAO in Uzbekistan, is that that we have opened a GIS laboratory in the University of Agriculture of Uzbekistan, so which is which is going to be used by research fellows of the university, master students, and bachelor students. Also, there was an event of our technical expertise has held a webinar and seminar, also offline seminar, where they teached the software like Quantum.js, how to apply them and how to use how to play around with the software, let's say, the layers and stuff like that. So another I would like to mention is that right now FAO is developing a new project which is which is called Digital Agriculture. So the project aims to analyze the opportunities of digital agriculture in Uzbekistan. So, and then the second mission of the project is to develop a strategy, or how to say, a concept, which based on the analysis of the current situation in Uzbekistan would be some kind of a tool. It could become also a government document, which could become like a strategy to develop digital agriculture in Uzbekistan. And then and one of the third output of the project is also expected to be some kind of a pilot product. Well, it's not, we have not identified yet what it is going to be. Is it going to be a tangible thing, or maybe it's going to be software which will significantly contribute to the development of digital agriculture. So a lot of stuff going on in Uzbekistan, like opening of AKIS, which is also agricultural knowledge and innovation systems exchange center. So this is basically it. This is what comes to my mind, like out of nowhere. I have also prepared some of the slides which could be useful. I mean, I even forgot that I have prepared some slides. Well,
no, Temurbek, I think your presentation, your contribution has been very interesting, because it does demonstrate the different kind of actions that we can take place and on which we can set in place, and on which FAO work to support the sector in Uzbekistan, but I suppose similar approaches will be used in other countries too. So we thank you very much. We see that the issue of skills development in the sector can be approached through different ways and with different kind of objectives. And of course, inclusiveness is important in these projects that support the development of the sector. So we thank you very much. And now, we will pass immediately to our next speaker from Morocco, Mr. Ahmed Bouzalmat from the Agency for Agricultural Development. Morocco has been doing a lot of things for many years now to develop the sector, and Morocco is very green. Yeah, there were two plans, Green Morocco and Green Generation now. And I think that I will leave the floor to you to tell us, how do you think about the development of the sector in terms of green and digital transition, and what do you think about skills? So the floor is yours.
Bonjour tout le monde. Merci d'avoir invité l'agence.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having invited our agency to participate to this very important webinar. Thank you for the presentation of the results. To answer your different questions, we have to mention that Morocco in 2020 has started a new strategy for the development of its agricultural sector. It is called Green Generation 2020-2030. This strategy is the program of Morocco for the agricultural sector for the coming 10 years. After the successes of the Morocco Green Plan, this strategy is based on two strategic basic. First of all, the priority of the human element and the sustainability of the agricultural sector. Concerning the human element, the strategy Green Generation has the target to increase the economical inclusion of vulnerable categories in the rural zones. First of all, having better conditions for the emergency of a new generation of young agricultural entrepreneurs through the facilitation of the access to agricultural funds. Also through transitional mechanisms of agricultural exploitation. The entrepreneurship has to be supported in the agricultural services, and agricultural learning shouldn't be neglected. The target of the new strategy is the appearance of 350 entrepreneurs in the field of agriculture and in other enterprises who give agricultural services. Then the strategy foresees also the economical inclusion after the efforts which have already started for the aggregation of small agricultures through the agro-industrial enterprises. The small agriculturers are a majority in Morocco, 70%, but possess less than 5 hectares and don't have managerial skills which are enough and don't have the means to modernize their production system. On the other hand, the agro business is suffering from an irregular supply in agricultural products. In quality, from the point of view of quality and quantity, and through the technology which we are talking about, people working in the agriculture will have the possibility to improve their products from the point of view of quality and quantity. And the commercial value of the product will increase. So this is also a solution, agro business, to facilitate the financing of small farmers. On the other hand, the strategy Green Generation in his second pillar concerns the sustainability of the agricultural development, is targeting the development through inclusiveness, which will be very economical. Measures have to be taken, and these should be very special measures. And we can also speak about rationalization of some products and the management of agricultural waste. Of course, here we can need some special methods and work in solidarity. The national irrigation program has also to go on. And the portfolio of the funding portfolio managed by the Agency for the Agricultural Development has 8 projects in the field of agriculture. When we speak about financing, and thanks to its accreditation in 2012 through the adaptation funds and by the Fund of Climate, we now have a better project for the development, and now we have 10 new projects. And I want to tell you that the Agency for the Agricultural Development is supporting some agencies which want to take benefit from the financing of some projects in the field of banking, and we can also speak about these projects. The new strategy, Green Generation, will also give an impulse to the development of digital services in agriculture. We will have in agriculture more digital services in the framework of this strategy I've spoken about, as platforms, online platforms, e-learning platforms, and also for some other training systems. We want to have 2,000 agricultural farmers who are using this system in line in the field of agriculture. The skills and trainings are also very important for the Green Generation, which wants to train 150,000 youngsters for 2030. That's why the ministry is working in this field and attaches big importance to the agricultural training in order to have a visibility and to anticipate the demand in the field of competences. The restructuration and the diversification of the training of the education are the most important part of the projects for better employability of youngsters in the agricultural sectors and in agro-business. And we wanted to have a much broader approach for an agricultural professional training. For the dialogue, the international dialogue in our sector, this gives the possibility to different countries to make a benchmarking of the best practices in the field of development of new approaches of know-how and governmental policy. Thus, we can also give the possibility to the deciders to take benefit of the new vocational training. When we speak about alimentation and agricultural, we should also attach importance to best practices, to exchange of visits in different countries to learn and to have an active interaction with the world community. And I would like to thank you very much for having invited me and for having listened to my short intervention.
Your presentation has been very interesting. And I think that all the presentation point to one thing, the efforts of the country to develop the sector, to use all the potential of the digital, to include people and also to work towards a greener future. I would like now, because we are a little bit delayed, I think we should have finished, but I think it does deserve these presentations and discussion. Erika, we don't have time for questions and answers, true?
Actually, we're running out of time, but
okay.
If there is any important question, you can
in
take
this case, I would like to give the floor to Margherita.
Yes, thank you very much, Anastasia.
To you to share your thoughts now.
Thank you very much. It was a really extremely interesting presentation and discussion. So I can only thank you all again, and thank you, Alistair, for a very insightful presentation. I really liked all the slides with the country examples. And thank you to all our panelists. It really gave us such rich insights into the various perspectives that should be taken into account on this important topic, and lots of ideas for our policy pointers as well. So, and thank you to you, Anastasia, for the organization.
Anastasia, you're
Thank
muted.
you so much, Margherita. Yes, I realized. Now, a little bit on the next steps. What we are going to do, it is to publish, of course, this report and to continue the discussion at national and international level in order to share this wealth of research and all the findings that we have to the largest number of people, and of course in partnerships with the others. So this is what I would like to say. We will have a launching event, Margherita, I'm correct, no, in September, around September, together with the BRD to inform different stakeholders on the sector, and also be part of the process for making the sector work better for the benefit of everybody. Alistair, one word from your part?
Just very briefly to say thank you to ETF and EBRD for the support during this assignment, and to everyone on the webinar today. I'm very pleased that our work seems to resonate with a broad range of actors in different countries, and I'm very hopeful that it can provide a platform for really practical next steps. I think it's difficult to overemphasize the significance of the transformation of agri-food systems in the context of building back better. So thank you and bon courage.
Thank you all. It was really nice to be with you. Thank you, and all the best.
Thank you. If you have a little bit of time, I put a link for the feedback form in the chat. If you can give us your opinion on the event, it will be great. The feedback form is available in all the languages that was available during the meeting. And thank you again for your participation. Thank you to Anastasia, to Alistair and Margherita, and to all the panelists that have taken the time to participate.
And our interpreters and our organizers. Yeah,
exactly.
Collective
Thank you
action.
so much. Yes, to all the team involved, to Ina, to the interpreters, to Gata Tours. And thank you so much. We will see each other very soon, I hope. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Dear participants. Goodbye. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye, Ina.
Goodbye, Tamar. Goodbye, Nicholas. Hope to see you next time. All the best to you.
All the best to you.
At least virtually.
At least, yes.
Thank you so much. Good health.
Okay. Have a good day. Goodbye.
Ciao.
Ciao.